Good. Good. I think we're alright. I need to get my headphones here. We're going to try and review a video today by MohammedHijab. Now, from my experience watching his stuff or watching people watch his stuff, he seems like the quintessential, like, cookie cutter intellectual, if that makes sense. Like, knows all the words, just doesn't know how to. And my headphones are dead. Let's see here. He knows all the words, he just doesn't know how to put them together in an eloquent or, sensible fashion. Harry. Wait, I'll do it later. Oh, there we go. I think. Maybe. Yeah. All right, here we go. Yeah, like I was saying, cookie cutter intellectual, very pompous, very self-important, self-aggrandizing. Yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't poison the well, but yeah, this guy's kind of he's a rather fond of himself. But that way.
Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us, whoever builds a mosque for Allah, Allah will build for him a similar house in Jannah. And we know the great reward that will not only be gained, but rather
See, look at it. Oh,
will fill your grave after your death. Whenever someone prays there, whenever someone gives shahada in the masjid, whenever someone learns something in the masjid, yes, that will be something that you will have on your scale.
sorry.
Assalamu alaikum.
And there's a lion. Here's a weird question, actually, completely unrelated. Are foxes dogs or cats? Because they almost come off as like halfway in between, but technically, I guess they have a muzzle, so maybe they'd be considered dogs.
Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? I'm here joined with
Look, this isn't the first time I watched this. Well, at least this first part here. I didn't watch the whole thing in any case, but do both of these guys look like they're just like the teeniest bit tipsy on something?
the beast of the
Or like maybe they just slowed down the video by like a 0.25 or something.
Middle East with Ahmed Al Basuni. How are you doing, bro? You're right, mashallah. Good to see you again.
I was expecting you to say another name there. As you
What shall I call you?
no, I thought you were gonna say beast from the Middle East and say something like Ahmed Kamil.
Some other name, eh?
Yeah.
Ahmed Khem is a friend of ours,
Ahmed
actually,
Kamil from
mashallah.
Ghana, man.
He's a good guy.
Habibi.
He should be here as well,
Mm-hmm.
making these videos with us. But unlike Ahmed Kamil and other good people like Zishan and Ali Dawa and these good people, today we're going to be talking about a scum.
What I've heard actually, there's kind of some, was it behind the veils or something? That there's some kerfuffle over this dude having a housewife, or not a hotel wife. That's the term, because you can't just go around banging people. You have to find a hotel wife to a wife to have relations with outside of your normal marriage. They have to make it legal so that it's okay or halal.
Back, aren't we?
I don't know way to put it. I don't know way to put it.
You know, we're talking about a chaff, aren't we?
Again, they come off as though they're like just a little bit high on something.
Oh, yeah, and for those who don't know what the word chav means, it's essentially the UK version of a hillbilly, like a redneck.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Oh my word.
He's a documented junkie. He's a person
I'm pretty sure this guy's. Wasn't there that one video where he was he was, I think there was actually a video where he was legitimately high on something, and who was he talking to? Alex Jones. I think he was yelling at Alex Jones for whatever reason. He was either drunk or high on something. I think it was with Sneeko. What have you done, Alex Jones? It was
who's,
interesting.
I mean, even in this interview that
It's kind of like watching a tipsy bear.
I watched parts of it. I couldn't watch all of it, but he admitted that he's uneducated. He has absolutely no education. He admitted.
I can't handle listening to it for more than 5 minutes, to be honest.
For the record, I also have little to, well, I mean, in the loosest sense of the word, I have education, but
Yeah, but the thing is, he kind of presents like he's on this podcast with these yani guys that seem to be
for the record, I don't know if that should necessarily be like a gatekeeping faculty in general. Like, it feels like people quite often use education as like, trust me, right? Okay, I have such and such an education, i.e., you can trust me. And I'm not saying it's necessarily bad, especially if a college has a good reputation for churning out really good scholars or academics. And maybe it is something that's worthwhile. But ultimately, like, I think you should base whether or not you listen to someone on their own merits. But maybe that's just my own thing there.
somewhat educated. Trigonometry.
This guy educated, or was educated at Eden, I believe, and he, it doesn't show. At least I assume, at least if people from Eden are supposed to be, not imbeciles.
Guys, they seem to be somewhat educated, probably.
Although that might be more a matter of narcissism than anything else.
Good level. Okay, and they're asking questions.
The tendency to make people act like idiots. Okay, stop.
About essentially what is an academic topic about Islam, right? Which is a religion, and then you got historical aspects of.
Not necessarily the case. I mean, yes, Islam is academic, but I think he's also talking about the social issues surrounding Islamic culture in the UK. That's what Tommy, I think, tends to gear towards. I guess I'm not for sure entirely with regards to this particular video, but I think in general he was the one who's breaking news about the grooming gangs and stuff like that. That's not really academic. It's not really, I guess maybe it's somewhat, but it's kind of, okay, this is what's happening on the streets of the UK.
Islam, the scriptural aspects of Islam, etc., etc., right? And they're asking all these questions, and he's like giving his non-professional answer. And we've heard some of it, but let's go through some of them, because we can just debunk some of those things and show the ridiculousness of listening to a chav for your academic information. So let's go for the first clip and come back and respond in kind.
So 2010, it's a crime. 2010, I'm in jail. I'm doing 22 weeks of solitary confinement at that point. Yeah.
For what?
For illegally entering America.
Right.
Stupid.
So this is, I don't know. In my mind, the whole notion that you should be able to read the Quran and come up with conclusions about the Quran, that seems kind of intuitively right. Like, that's the way it should work. Put it this way, if there is some like hyper nuanced interpretation to the Quran, okay, that's fine. And for the record, I hope there is such a thing that this type of Islam, this nuanced version of Islam, is or will become the only version of Islam. But if people who just read the Quran and take it as it is are coming up with some very wrong-headed conclusions, it feels like as long as the Quran exists in its present iteration, that will always be a thing. There will always be a sect of Islam that are going kind of schizo. For the sake of all the Muslims who aren't schizo, I'll say that there will always be a sect of Islam that are taking the Quran the wrong way, the way perhaps Tommy Robinson is taking it.
Yeah. Do you know what it was? I'll tell you the truth.
Do you have any idea just how hypocritical that is?
This is pathetic, really, isn't it?
Because
Mr. Immigration, Mr. Anti-Immigration.
Exactly. He's constantly banging on about the immigrants and the taking of the
illegal immigrants.
You did it yourself, bro. You did it yourself. You went to America illegally.
Yeah, it's true.
And got imprisoned for it.
Yeah.
Like the hypocrisy.
And to be fair, he wasn't necessarily staying there, but it doesn't mean.
Hypocrisy is just.
And the Americans, who are also far right, basically, the hillbilly Americans, who know about this guy, they wouldn't reprimand him for this.
You know what annoys me the most about this? It's this white privilege.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you know what? No, mate.
This. He's pretty brown. This guy, I think, could walk down the street and I don't know if. Yeah, never.
I'm Tommy Robertson.
Yeah.
Hey, mate,
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
I'm a white man.
Yeah.
With the English background,
Yeah.
the ancestry, English through and through.
But he's actually Irish, you know.
Bro, whatever. For him, he's thinking.
His real name is Laxley Stephen. Stephen Laxley, Lennon or something.
He's thinking, I'm as white as they come. I'm gonna go to America, the land of the free. But why would they reject me for?
Yeah.
I'm the head of the EDL.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Bro, you're subject to the laws the same way we are. Us brown and black guys. Yani the other, if you want to call them the other.
He's being very generous with the word brown there, but again,
subject to the same laws that we're subject to. You went to US illegally. The irony of that
it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
It's glaring, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go for the next clip, see what he says.
Do not be friends with Christians or Jews. And I challenge anyone to do this. Pick up a Quran and go through and make reference to the verses that tell you not to be friends with Christians or Jews. And I started writing these verses and I had pages of them. And I was like, it was like a jigsaw just fell into place. Everything I've seen growing up, the Muslim playground, the Muslim dinner tour, the friends who side with them, well, they're taught from a little age. Supremacy, they're taught not to be friends with us. They can't be friends with us.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks. I start by brain dumping everything I need to.
There we go.
Yeah, do you want to respond to this?
So the first part, first of all, he's misquoted the ayah. Like, don't take non-Muslims as friends. That is not what the ayah says.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's literally a thing where it says, "Do not make friends with the Christians or the Jews, for they are friends of one another." Maybe something. Allah does not guide the wrongdoing folk. I'm not for sure that's correctly. I know the first part is correct. That's pretty specific. Again, maybe there's some nuanced interpretation of that, but it feels like taking it on the face. That would give anyone just reading the Quran the idea that no, you're not supposed to take these people as friends.
It says allies.
Yeah, awliya.
Awliya. Exactly. That's one. If anything, we have contrary. We have ayat that actually say the opposite.
Yeah.
That in yani you can be sort of mumtahana or sort of tahrim.
Yeah. No, Surah Al-Mumtahana, yeah.
What's the ayah?
Which is obviously why jizya is a thing.
Where it says لا ينهاكم الله.
Exactly. لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في
الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم.
تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم.
So just translate this for the people. So Allah does not forbid you to be just with non-Muslims who have not tried to take you out of your homes.
Exactly. Yes.
And have not tried to kill you.
And there's also an issue of, I guess, chronology here, because I think that the idea of abrogation is, okay, so where did these scriptures that they're talking about come in the Quran? At what point, and like how do they line up with everything else? Because the idea is that what Muhammad said later supersedes what he said earlier.
Sorry, that you be good with them.
Which actually, I think might point out a pretty significant difference in the Bible versus the Quran, in that it seems like in the Old Testament versus New Testament, Jesus was really good at preserving the essence of what had come before, and supplementing it with like supplementing it with a more expansive teaching or a more complete understanding of that thing, rather than subverting it on some level or going back on what had been done before. And I think that's the notion. If truth, never mind.
Yes.
And that you're also just with them.
Whereas I think in Muhammad's case, he literally would have given some pretty contradictory settings. I know at one point, Muta was then, it was allowed when they were on the warpath at least, and then Muhammad might have later said, no, you can't have these temporary marriages. There's differences in belief on that point, though.
That Allah loves the ones who are just.
Yes. In other words, if they're being good with you.
Sure,
you should be good
like for example, right?
To clarify, some of these verses might legitimately in the Quran. They probably are, in some sense. But one of the problems with the Quran is it seems like Muhammad is kind of all things to all men. A little bit. He says, at any given point, he will say kind of anything. So you can look in there and find a verse that says blank. Yeah, great, wonderful. But over here's a verse that says the complete opposite, it seems like, quite often. And again, there's this issue of chronology. The things that came later were the things that were the more problematic, if that makes sense. They were the, I think he got progressively more and more militant as he gained power.
We are talking about, it says the opposite. It does say the opposite in Surah Luqman, for example, chapter 31 of the Quran, where Allah mentions if you've got non-believing parents, if they tell you to do shirk with Allah, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبُهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا, and be friends with, literally be friends with them. Now, the thing is, if the interpretation of Islam is the way he wanted us to believe it, it would actually defy the life of the Prophet, because he had, for example, his uncle Abu Talib. Okay, Abu Talib was a non-Muslim, and you cannot say that the Prophet ﷺ, A, was not friends with him, or B, did not love him. In fact, an ayah came down about him, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ, that you won't guide who you love, meaning that you love him. So you can even love, and the thing is, you can marry a Christian as a Muslim. So how can you marry?
I've gotten the idea that a man can marry a woman can't marry a man, because the idea is to bring the woman into the fold. Maybe there are differences in that with regards to different sects, but I've gotten the idea it only goes to one way. A man can marry a woman cannot marry a man. So maybe that's indicative.
Marry them and not be friends with them.
Exactly.
So look, there's so many examples of this. It's pathetic,
To be fair, I mean, you married a woman and you're not necessarily friends with her anymore.
This is not what Islam encourages. It's not what Islam preaches. It's you have a misunderstanding because you're a chav and you haven't done your GCSE English.
Yeah.
Or because you're taking it from the playbook.
Again, if Tommy Robinson reads the Quran and gets this idea, do you not think that other people will read the Quran and take it the quote-unquote wrong way?
Of Islamophobes or extremists and radicals. This is not what we believe. This is not what Islam teaches. It's not what it preaches.
But for the record, that might be true. It might not be what this guy believes. But again, it feels like it writ large, as long as you have the Quran in its present iteration, there will be people who believe that thing. There will be people who get that idea.
Nothing of the sort. In fact, you can have hubb tabi'i. All the scholars of Islam say you can have natural love to non-believers.
He also went on to say the Muslim playgrounds and the Muslim this and the Muslim. I don't know what this guy has seen or what he's referring to.
Yeah,
in my mind, like all of what they're talking about is kind of theoretical. In practice, almost all Muslim countries are like kind of, they're not necessarily super multicultural. They don't allow for a lot of other cultures or religions or whatever to thrive within their bounds quite often. I would guess maybe one of the few circumstances, which is maybe just because all the trade, would be like, I don't know, maybe Saudi Arabia or something like that. They're trying to westernize some, but a lot of cases, the most extreme ones, the ones where Sharia law is actually present, they're pretty locked down as far as like other religions coming in and trying to evangelize or anything like that. So like as far as like just coexistence with other religions or other cultures, it's not really it's the paragon for that type of thing.
Drop in Luton.
But, bro, I don't understand. Like
Yeah.
here in London,
Yeah.
I can't speak for Luton. I've not
Yeah.
lived there.
Yeah.
But here in London, I've never in my life
Seen a Muslim
some
playground.
Muslim exclusive group like playground or I don't know what he's on.
For the record, I think what Tommy was talking about was the idea that when he was a kid growing up and they would fight on the playground, you would have Muslim kids that would immediately, like, they were your friends, and probably they were, but they would kind of jump into their grouping. I don't know if that's better or worse.
About. In my opinion, that's just clutching at straws. And this supremacy thing, where's that from? Please, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ.
And you know
Bring
what?
your evidence if you're truthful.
Like, if you really, we don't want to open the can of worms now, but he's like always talking about the idea and always talking about Zionism and Jews in a favorable way. But Judaism as a religion, let's look at the Talmud and see how it describes the Goy, how it describes people who are not Jewish, and how many scholars of Judaism interpret it in that manner. Interpret, for example,
I could be wrong. I don't think the Talmud is actually holy writ. So the Torah is the actual like Bible. I could be wrong about this. I think the Torah is the actual Bible, and then the Talmud is a series of religious commentaries. It's like what their scholars thought about certain things. It's kind of a mixed bag, as I understand it. And yeah, probably bad guys in there. Probably people who were pretty, weird / bad. But again, it's not Holy Scripture.
that Jews are the favored people, which, by the way, the Quran explicitly condemns, if you could say that, and refutes, and that instead of this,
I look this up. I'm pretty sure at one point the Quran says, yeah, I would check that part against verses in the Quran. That seems a bit suspect.
all of the other people are there to serve them, etc. There's so many quotations of that.
Why doesn't he bring this heat to the Jewish community?
And again, maybe there are verses like that. But again, Muhammad, all things to all men. Okay? You could find verses like that, probably. But you could also find a lot of other verses.
This is what I want to understand.
Yeah.
Why does he not bring the same heat? If he's consistent, why doesn't he bring the same heat to the Jewish community? When the Jewish community have their own ambulance service?
It seems like the Jewish community is relatively unobtrusive quite often. Less assertive, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
When they have their own police.
I don't think they I think just like from a biblical standpoint, I think they are kind of non-expansionist. They don't really proselytize that much. If someone wants to join, I think they're actually pretty standoffish a little bit. That they'll maybe let you come to the faith, but it's not like they're going out and saying, no, come join us, come be Jewish or whatever.
When they have their own security guards guarding their schools. Why does he not? I've never heard him mention this. I mean, like I said, I can't stand listening to him for more than 5 minutes. So maybe there is something out there, but
there is not. There is not. I don't think there is.
I've never come across anything where he's attacking the Jewish community the same way he attacks the Muslim community.
Yeah, and look, the halacha is very similar to Sharia in many ways, and much more strict in many ways. And here's something I would say: almost everything, if not everything, you will criticize Islam for, Judaism either has it, or has it on a more severe scale.
Version, exactly.
Yeah, let's not say more extreme, because
But Muslims aren't better than Jews. It's just that their religion is better in every way.
Indicate there's maybe some extremism, but like on a more severe level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's hear the next clip.
So the Jewish tribes surrender. Now, when they surrender, Muhammad tortures Kanana, he's the leader of the Jewish tribe, setting fire to his stomach to rob his gold. What sort of prophet is this?
Jew gold. It is a thing.
I'm thinking,
why is Amazon paying me $600 a day? Because I use Amazon AI.
What sort of man is this? Jesus says turn the other cheek. Muhammad's torturing, burning people and robbing them. So he's robbing them.
Yeah, I checked the reference for this. He mentioned somewhere before in this discussion, he was like, well, Ibn Ishaq mentions kada wa kada, this and that. The thing is, first of all, he didn't pronounce the word Ibn Ishaq properly. He couldn't even speak English, so I don't know why he thinks he can speak Arabic. Ibn Ishaq is a resource that we do not consider authoritative in the way that he's described, because he said it was very authoritative. In fact, it's meant to be a compendium of authoritative and non-authoritative hadith. And the one...
Why is there a compendium of authoritative and non-authoritative hadith? Like, why would you just... never mind.
That he mentioned is actually fabricated. So there is no strong authentic hadith that says that Kinana was tortured in any way by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, there is no...
Maybe check that one.
Such a record at all that is relied upon by the Muslims, and something we don't accept. And so therefore it's not mentioned in the books of jurisprudence and fiqh. And so he just mentioned this because he probably read it in one of those anti-Islamic websites. He did not read that from the Quran. He did not read that from a primary source. He did not come to his conclusions himself. And had he read that from an English translation of Ibn Ishaq, I guarantee you there'd probably be a footnote in the bottom of the page saying this hadith is inauthentic.
Well, I don't even believe...
Yeah. I don't know about that. It just seems... I guess maybe I doubt there's, at the very least, I doubt there's a consensus that was not the case. That was definitely fake or something like that. But
that he read the Quran when he was in prison. I don't believe that at all.
Yeah.
And he's saying, oh, I found all of this. That's not even in the Quran. So like I don't understand what he's on about. It's this attempt to make himself seem like, oh look, I'm a researcher, or I've looked into this properly, and I'm
the thing is, I've heard that story from, I guess, people who maybe should know what they're talking about. Mostly, I think David and Apostate Prophet, and maybe some other people as well. That I think that's kind of a thing, or at least that some Muslims would believe that's the case. It's not just a fable or something like that.
bringing this newfound
So maybe these guys don't believe it, but if you look, there would be Muslims that would believe it.
knowledge to bringing it to the surface and showing the people what Islam is all about.
Yeah, but do you know what? These trigonometry guys, unfortunately, they've done themselves a disservice with this, because they've brought an unlearned.
You should have brought me on. I would have shown them my chest.
Man, as like an ignorant guy, by any standard, honestly, by any he would not be accepted to teach in a primary school or even a nursery, bro. Like, this guy, he can't teach a child. He's not qualified to teach a child. Okay, you've brought a guy at that level to speak to the public about a very sophisticated academic topic. You have any? Okay, look, there are anti-Islamic people who are academics. You could have got, if you really wanted to hear that voice, got an anti-Islamic person and maybe got an Islamic person,
like Douglas Murray,
got them to debate each other. But what you've done to yourself is you've created a disservice. You've made a disservice, because now you're making the public ignorant. Your fans and your followers are now become more ignorant. Let's hear the next one.
All right.
I'll be done. You can watch the rest of it if you want to.
This insane turbojet blasts dirt, dust, and leaves in seconds. Nobody believed me at first, but...
And then after robbing them, he takes that night, Sophia, so any Muslims, and when I have this conversation with Muslims, they don't even know about this, half of them. Yeah? I said, he took the man's wife that night and married her. Now here's the two different worldviews. I see that as raping the man's wife that night. Other Muslims have said, well, no, he saved her from a life of slavery, from all the other men raping her. Because he took her. He was actually really good because he saved her. It's like, what? But anyway, he beheads these people. He does...
Well, arguably true, but still not good. I guess it's a question of like, okay, so in a town of rapists, is a thief a saint? Maybe not. Maybe it would have been a better fate. It doesn't mean it was good to do. He's still kind of a...
this, and I started going through his life.
Yeah, so he says he sees it as raping. But so let's read some authentic narrations about this then, because I don't know where. First of all, if you're going to say something about a religion, okay, if I'm going to say something about Christianity or Judaism or something like that, and you're making this claim, you need to have the references at hand. You need to be ready. So if someone says, where exactly? So chapter number, verse number.
I don't disagree necessarily, at least if you want it to be some sort of reference for, all of time, or if you want to create some sort of comprehensive thing on a thing. But if you're talking on a podcast or something like that, it would be very easy to see that, okay, such and such reference, such and such a place can kind of throw a wrench into the works. Like, it kind of maybe would inhibit a level of the flow of the conversation if you're just every now and then just stopping saying blah 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 blah. Here's another source. Here's another source. Here's another reference. Here's another reference. Oh, and this is what it says. So I could see, for the sake of eloquence or whatever, you would maybe just want to say, hey, this is the gist of it.
Or it's mentioned in...
Also, pretty much everyone can look this stuff up now. So
such and such a source, yeah? He hasn't done that. So he says, oh, well, I see that as raping, etc. Let's read some of the hadith.
Just want to point out, when he was talking about the Talmud, I don't know if he was doing any of that, but
he's relating to this.
Also,
I guess maybe he wasn't making like specific accusations against the Talmud.
Should be mentioned before you do. The moment you do make a claim like this, and it turns out that you were lying or that it was false, it just discredits everything you have to say after that. Yeah. Everything you have to say after that completely discredits it.
It discredits
because now I'm just gonna doubt everything you say because you've lied before. you've made these claims before and you twisted it or you manipulated it to seem like something to fit your own narrative, but in reality that's not the reality.
Bring the academic referencing, okay? The Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith, this is what happened, right? He said, your father was always among the most hostile Jews towards me until Allah caused him to be killed. Obviously, he was a combatant on the other side of Banu Qurayza, and we've discussed at length that Banu Qurayza were not killed because they were Jews. They were killed because they were treacherous. People like Karen Armstrong mentions that in her book, A Short Introduction to Islam. People who are non-Muslim agree with that. She replied, O Messenger of Allah, indeed Allah says in his book, no bearer of burdens will bear the burden of another. So she's basically saying, me and my father are distinct in our beliefs. The Prophet ﷺ then said,
I think you could look this up. There's actually a verse in the Quran that says women are unreliable, probably. Well, I think there was at least one that says that women and another group or something. No, was it women Jews? That they're the ones who are, hell is mostly comprised of these people.
choose.
Saying, why are we trusting what a woman says? How is that an authoritative hadith or whatever? An authoritative reference source?
He says choose. You can choose yourself. If you choose Islam, I will keep you for myself, meaning I'll marry you, right? And if you choose Judaism, perhaps I will set you free so that you may join your people. So it's saying if you choose.
Okay, that's enough. You can watch the rest if you want. I probably actually watched more than I should. But yeah, Trigonometry asked Chav Tommy Robinson about Islam. Yeah, these guys kind of come off as frat bros that are a little bit high on something. Cookie cutter intellectual. I don't know how I feel about this guy. He kind of seems kind of cut from the same cloth as him. I don't know actually who this guy is. What is it? Oh, Ahmad, that's what this guy is. And what they're talking about here, I guess it feels like in this situation and in the other, there might be certain sects of Islam, like I said before, there might be certain sects of Islam that take it this way and say that these are authoritative hadith, that this is what it says and this is how it's to be interpreted. But you can't act like that there's a consensus on this type of stuff. I think there are a lot of people who perhaps not these guys, generous interpretation, perhaps not these guys. Maybe they're completely honest, they're not BSing at all. But there are people who would look at it and interpret it the way that Tommy is saying. Like there are very much Islamic sects that would do that. That's my idea anyways. All right, thanks for watching. If you like the video, please press the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment if you want to.